Well, I'm Betty Ford, Mrs. Gerald R. Ford, and probably prominent because a few years ago my husband was President of the United States, and I have a background that is pretty much of a mother with 4 children and now 4 grandchildren, and it's a pretty interesting background from the standpoint that my husband served in the White House and many years in the Congress of the United States, in fact all our married years. And I'm 65, and it's been an interesting life because, as I say, all our married life has been spent pretty much in Washington, D.C., except our retirement, which came about in '77.
I remember. I would like to discuss today your experience with cancer. What year was that you discovered that you had cancer?
1974, and my husband had just been sworn into office as President of the United States. He had been Vice President for a period of about 6 months under most unusual circumstances, and it was at a time when the country was going through a great deal of pain, and with the resignation of President Nixon, and consequently our going into office came about during a very, what I would say, a stressful time. We assumed that responsibility, and my health had been excellent other than a pinched nerve in my neck, which had given me a great deal of trouble. I'd been hospitalized in traction and that sort of thing. There was no cancer in the history of my family, and consequently, through a normal 6 months physical checkup, it was discovered that I had a lump in my right breast. And after a very emotional, traumatic time with the family, learning about this and my learning about it, of course we decided to go ahead with the recommendation that a biopsy be done. And that was a difficult time, but it was a period of great growth, and I have never really regretted it.
Mm-hmm. You say that it was a difficult emotional time, and I can imagine that's true for anyone, but especially in your circumstance with sort of the eyes of the world focused on you constantly. How did you deal with the emotional factor? How did you hold yourself together through it?
Well, I think that I had a great deal of spiritual faith that whatever was going to be the outcome, it was going to be all right. Emotionally, my family, particularly my daughter, who was just 18 at that time, our daughter Susan, was traumatized to the extent that cancer to her she had never addressed, never knew anything about it, and her fear was that cancer related to death, and that she was going to perhaps lose her mother. I think that I was more optimistic. I knew more. I was better educated as far as cancer and the possibility of treatment and the very good results that were coming about even in those years as far as being able to, with a mastectomy, take what cancer there was in the breast and not particularly have to have any reoccurrence of it. My husband was shocked, but I think we had established over the years such a close relationship within our family. We had 4 grown children, and it was just a very good support system. The boys were notified by telephone and they stood by. Our oldest son and his wife came as rapidly as they could when we knew that I was going into the hospital. But actually, at that time, I felt I had to get on with whatever I had in life. It was an exciting time for me because of the White House and all the demands of that. And I just wanted to get it taken care of and get back on the job.
And what was the time frame between the time that you discovered that you had cancer and the surgery?
Well, actually, the discovery of the lump in the breast was on a Thursday. And Thursday, I wasn't aware of it when the doctors examined me because I'd had a lot of examinations and probing and prodding because of my neck. And I wasn't too particularly worried when they brought in another doctor. But when finally that evening, the White House physician, Dr. Lukash, said he wanted me downstairs at 7 o'clock, and he introduced me to a specialist who was to examine my breast. I began to realize that something rather serious was happening, and I knew that was true when, after the examination, I walked out of the office. My husband was standing there, and he took me in his arms, and just said, you know, it's going to be okay, don't worry, honey. He had been called and come right over from the Oval Office. And when we went upstairs, Susan was there, and we could see she'd been crying, and she revealed the fact that she had already been forewarned by Dr. Lukash that there was a possibility that I had cancer of the breast. And being a young girl, I think her whole world was sort of crumbling, and it was a difficult time having to move to the White House anyway. Yeah. She was still in school, and this came as one more blow for her.
I can imagine. And so Thursday was the discovery.
They said I would have to go in for an operation immediately, but I said I can't. I have too many commitments tomorrow, and they said, well, immediately will have to be Saturday because we're booked up in the operating room Friday anyway. So we'll take you in on Friday night after you get through all your other commitments. And they then did the operation in the morning. I was quite sure that when I was all draped and ready to go in the operating room somehow, with all my prayer and meditation about it, I was prepared that it was going to be a mastectomy. They, of course, told me that if there was no cancer cell, I wouldn't have to remove the breast, and they'd return me to my room. Somehow I knew that probably, in all probability, I didn't get that far without the realization that it would probably be the loss of the breast. I hadn't quite addressed it then because there was a lot of support system from the family. We'd all had dinner together the night before, and we had prayed over it a little bit, and our oldest son is in the ministry, and another minister had come, and so we had a lot of spiritual support as well as our own family support. And when I did wake up in the recovery room the next day, I was prepared. I'm not sure my family were, but I felt that my strength would help them. You know, somehow it's like when everybody gets sick, in spite of the fact that Mother's sick, she can't lie down and rest. Mother's responsibilities. And I felt that I had to keep very upbeat because they were pretty upset.
And what was the extent of the surgery that was performed?
They removed the right breast and some of the muscles, but they were able to, it was a modified radical. When they examined the lymph nodes, there were 3 of the lymph nodes that were involved with cancer. And I was glad to think that they had found it in time, and it was soon after that my husband and I just felt very fortunate that, I mean, I could have been walking around and not had it found and gotten beyond the point where surgery could help me.
Yes.
And that's the dangerous part.
Yes.
So breast examination, of course, is very important.
I've got enough No, if you could have this for one more question, just so I can get a little bit more.
Okay, so what's for lunch?
Yeah, not much. Trying to lose some weight before we go to Bermuda.
Lose weight. Gee, you look fabulous.
Well, there's always a lump here, a lump there that needs working on.
You're going off to the mountains soon, I would imagine.
Yes, we go up to Colorado for the summer, so I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've been doing for a good many years, and it gives us a chance to get away from, somewhat get away from the phone. At least
is that right? It's less busy up there?
things slow down a little bit. Well, as soon as it's less busy, we program something else. We have a golf tournament. We have a National Affairs World Forum up there with a lot of very important people from Europe coming in, and a lot of chief executive officers and their wives that come for a 4-day stay. And,
A lot of hostessing happening.
you know, if there's nothing to do, we develop a seminar, a golf tournament or something.
It's a great quote.
What's really different is that I get to wear blue jeans to work.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's about it.
Yep.
Channel 6 concludes its program.